Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with random reviews from the Overflow room. Well, this is actually an interesting trip down memory lane for a reason which will become obvious in a moment. We're working on Haydn, just heaps of Haydn. And we start with this. Yeah. This fantastically interesting recording, well, it's interesting, of Haydn Symphonies 49, 52, and 58 with Thomas Fey and the Heidelberg Symphony. Now, when this disc originally came out, I was blown away. I gave it a 10/10 and thought it was marvelous. But then, Hensler re-released it for reasons I can't even begin to explain. But they sent me a bunch of new ones, and this was in there. And I listened to it again, and I had to revise my opinion a little bit. It went from a 10/10 to an 8. And what caused the 10 decreasing to an 8? What caused the 10 decreasing was the fact that Fey employs a rather obtrusive harpsichord continuo in these performances. And these are Sturm und Drang symphonies. By this period, even if you used a harpsichord in the earlier Morzen symphonies or the early Esterhazy pieces, by now it was really evident that it was unnecessary. And the problem with the continuo in these performances is that you just hear it too much, especially in like repeated eighth note figurations in fast music, where the guy's just going, it sounds silly. And it detracts from the color and contrast to the music. And so hearing it again and in context with the other performances that I got at the same time, which didn't have continuo, I thought, it just isn't as good as I thought it was. It didn't hold up on repetition. And so I went back and re-reviewed it and explained this whole thing then. You can see the review at ClassicsToday.com. And that's what happens. That's what happens in the critical world. If you like continuo, you could give it a 10. If you don't, well, maybe not. And your mind can change over time. I don't think the essentials of my view of the performance has changed very much. The sound of the period instrument style in the first movement of La Passione was a little desiccated, but the basic performances were really exciting and finely judged. It was just that the approach left me a little colder as I lived with it for a while. And that's such a big part of this process that critics seldom talk about. You have to live with the performance. One of the things I always objected to, for example, with gramophone performances, is that critics don't get to keep the discs they review. So that means that no revised opinions are possible, at least by the people who did the initial work. They get promotional discs. They have to listen to them, review them, and then return them. And so often, you've got to live with something for a little while. One of the things I always insisted on at Classics Today, especially as time went on, is that critics take their time, so that, yes, of course, sometimes your mind will change, but you'll be much clearer in your view and your opinion if you've had the performance, under your skin for a little while, if you've lived with it for a bit. And so you can see if your initial impressions hold up. Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. And we have to be honest about it either way. So there you go. Next. Oh, what's this? The Haydn 7 Last Words. Yeah. And this is the vocal version with Accentus and the Academy for Alte Musik Berlin, Lawrence, pardon me. He's a she. With Sandrine Piau, who's wonderful, Ruth Sandhoff, Robert Getchell, and Harry van der Kamp. Now, the oratorio version is by Haydn himself, which is really cool. And, because what happened was, he wrote it and it was wildly popular. I mean, it's incredibly popular, which was a total shock to Haydn because it consists of, 7 slow movements with a slow introduction and then a final earthquake. And somebody made a choral version of it, which Haydn thought was dreadful. And he said, I can do a better job than that. So he had Baron von Swieten monkey up some of the words. and he made his own. And for his own, he added a fabulous wind band introduction. He divided it into two parts, and so he added a second introduction for winds only, a really gaunt, creepy, spooky thing. And then, of course, you get the final earthquake. And this is very periody, and it's, Accentus is a tiny group. It's small scale with the Academy for Alte Musik Berlin. I like Harnoncourt. I like bigger. I got, this is what it is. But, the music itself could have so much more grandeur. The topic, just think about the topic. I understand, whatever forces were available were available, but Haydn's oratorios, which were based on Handel's oratorios, were performed in Vienna with enormous forces, much bigger than we see them done today. All the woodwind parts would be tripled and double timpani and brass and as many screaming people as you could get. And it just makes no sense to do these pint-sized performances of this music. It's supposed to overwhelm. And frankly, like I said, the topic, the death of the dying utterances of the Savior of mankind on the cross. This is ending with an earthquake, right? A convulsion of nature. This is not little. And it just shouldn't be performed that way. Sorry, that's how I feel about it. Okay, so those are the vocal and instrumental things. The rest of this is, just two more things. Quartets. Opus 76 with the Tokyo Quartet, one of the great Haydn records ever made in the history of the universe. Tokyo did three Haydn sets. They did Opus 20 for Deutsche Grammophon. They did these for Sony. And they also did, I think, Opus 55 or Opus 50, I think it was 50. And anyway, that's what they did. They were great. Oh, if they'd only done a whole cycle for one label, it might have been the Haydn cycle for the ages. They play this stuff superbly. It's stylish. It's brilliant. It has rhythm. It has color. It has energy. It has introspection where necessary. It's just fantastic. Absolutely amazing. So keep that in mind. And then the Pinocchio Quartet. Oh, I love the Pinocchio Quartet. And here we are, another Opus 76. These are very different from the Tokyos. They're they're just as good, but they have a different corporate sonority. They have maybe a more intimate chamber music-y feel, I think, to some of what they do. They're a little bit less steely sounding. I don't know if that's the word. But they do have a very, very beautiful timbre. The Tokyo has a fabulous timbre too, and amazing intonation, but it's a different concept. And I just love comparing these. That's why I have them together, next to each other, because I put on one and then I'm usually impelled to listen to another. So these are on Superfon. It's 2 discs. Good luck finding them. I wish. But Opus 76, oh boy, is that heavy-duty, great quartet writing. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me, and take care.